Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell. The chief looked meaningfully at the wall clock, which was the main ornament of his office. This gesture was made by Anthony brightly and expressively, which, according to his plan, should have put the visitor in a state of stupor or confusion. But Adriana had long been accustomed to this kind of stunts of her superior. She smiled and, sorry, in a different tone asked, "Anthony, don't be angry with me. I know I was supposed to turn in the report yesterday, but it didn't add up. I got the data in one place." The chief didn't want to back down like that. "I'm trying to be formidable." He stretched his words deliberately and said, "I'd expect a backstabbing from anyone but you. You have always been a reliable shield of our department. And now I can't even imagine what reason could make you change your principles." Not a single muscle on the woman's face did not tremble, and the smile still sent a positive message to the interlocutor. "Anthony, you know there's bad luck in old times. Technology makes mistakes, and I'm just an ordinary woman." The chief interrupted. "You ladies love to show off your weakness, and we fall for it, and we do it with pleasure, and we suffer for it. Although men are much weaker than you. This fact, by the way, is confirmed by world statistics. And you and I, my dear loner, are part of this wonderful professional community." The chief spoke so convincingly that the woman was imbued with the pathos of his speech and even squared her shoulders. For many years of work in the Department of Statistics, she clearly learned the main rules. It is dangerous to joke with figures. But the chief was waiting, and she had to explain the reason for the delay. "You're right, as always, and I'm proud to be entrusted with such a high honor to oversee the life of our city." "That's a good point, but I'll make one correction. My parents are not just for our city, but for the entire region. Therefore, the importance of our work is multiplied." The chief was pleased. Now he could use even the most ridiculous arguments as justification. But Adriana had never been able to lie since she was a child, so she was honest. "I realized the responsibility, so I didn't give you the form with the mistake, even though I could have done so. I thought I'd let you know. I didn't have the data. Right here." The woman poked with a pencil in the column of numbers on the report issued by the computer. And the chief looked at her in amazement. "There's no mistake. That's the thing, there isn't. I reread it 3 times. I thought there was a glitch in the program." The man smeared the back of his head with the palm of his hand. "Whose fault is it that our numbers are down? It's down a lot from last quarter. We're not going to be honored for that kind of performance." "That's a good point. Yesterday I rechecked the reports given to us by the enterprises, and what did the agricultural sector fail? They're the ones who are overdrawn. Have you informed the management?" "Anthony, it's not in my competence." The chief began to knead the back of his head more intensively. "That's right. There's no need to get in the middle of this. I'll have to take the blame." Oh, I can hardly imagine the governor's angry face. "But it's not our fault. Let those responsible answer for their mistakes. And you try to explain to them that we are not involved officials, just to find an extreme. And statisticians are the most suitable for the role of the shooter." The chief was thinking, but in his head the thought process was going on intensively. This was confirmed by frequent tapping on the table. Not a very pleasant sound. But Adriana tolerated it for the sake of the common cause, to speed up the chief's decision. She offered him her option. "I think Anthony should inform the mayor and let him decide what to do with these statistics." The chief looked at her watch again. "I guess that's what we'll have to do. Although I don't want to. I feel sorry for our mayor. He's a good businessman and responsible, but we have no right to set him up." The chief thought for a couple more minutes, but without the pencil. Then he picked up the phone. "Okay, Adriana, you can relax for now. I'll try to get through to the mayor." The chief started dialing the number of the reception area, and she left the office, trying not to make any noise. Adriana was sure that the department she was in charge of was in full swing. But as soon as she stepped out of the elevator, she heard a suspicious noise that they had made there, that exclamation of indignation drowned in the space of the long corridor. There were many anecdotes about the size of this room, and most of the pearls of folk wit brought not quite decent character. But all employees knew from their own experience that the long corridor was ideal for relieving stress and other negative emotions. By various estimates, the distance was between 80 and 100 paces, which was a very respectable distance. As Adriana reached the source of the noise, her anger evaporated. But in order to maintain her image, she simply had to do some preventative work with the staff. When she swung the doors open, the department was dead silent. Only the youngest employee, Helen, exclaimed in surprise, "Oh, Adriana, you're so fast." The supervisor looked at the faces of the frozen women with a stern look. "What kind of party are you organizing during working hours? You can hear it outside. Are we a cultural center or a statistics department?" Wendy is the oldest employee in the department. Don't swear at the Adriana girls. They are like hunted horses, working since morning without taking their eyes off the computer. You can take a break. Do I mind? But there's a time for everything. You can even sing and jump around on your lunch break. Unexpectedly, Helen revealed the reason for the excitement. "Adriana, is it true you have a silver wedding coming up?" This naive question caught the head of the department by surprise. She froze in confusion, not knowing what to answer. The sane Wendy came to the rescue. "You'll have to forgive us, but such events don't happen every day. And we're all very happy for you. And during our absence, we had a little talk about life." While the oldest worker fought back for everyone, the supervisor regained her composure. "Of course, thank you all for your concern, but I still don't understand the reason for your unbridled joy." Helen was ahead of her older colleague this time. How can Adriana not be happy? It's such a rare thing these days. I mean, a long-term marriage. After all, according to statistics, almost half of couples divorce in the first 5 years, and up to 20% of them split up after 10 years. I just made a graph for our region, so I have accurate data. Wendy interrupted the girl. "Helen, I wanted to say that your case is unique, and we were just discussing the problems of modern families. But we got a little louder than we should have, although it's understandable, because it's a very painful topic for many people." The faces of the female employees were tense, and Adriana was surprised to think that these nice women and girls were afraid of her. Although she had always been against panic at work, she had never tried to put fear in everyone. But what struck her most of all was that the staff cared about her life. She remembered how her father had taught her that everything personal should be left at home. And this rule she diligently followed for many years. But it turns out that life can be different. Not everything is within the established rules. The women anxiously watched their leader, and she could not move from one point. The lively participation of the small group touched her heart, and Adriana thanked everyone once again, but already much warmer. "Thank you. But I didn't think you were interested in the personal life of your boss, and it's not customary to discuss such things. But thank you anyway. It's a pleasure." Wendy decided to speak her mind. "I know from my own experience that it's nice for anyone to have other people involved. And we are all not strangers here. I don't want to refer to the figures again, but it has already been proven by scientists that we all spend a significant part of our time at work. Even on socializing with loved ones, we spend far fewer hours and minutes than we do sorting things out at work." Happy Helen seconded. "What a useful science statistics is." Wendy looked at the girl so that she lost the desire to interrupt her elders. "Numbers are numbers, and my personal opinion is that the collective is a second family. In principle, such relations used to prevail at large factories and small enterprises. People used to get closer together and spend holidays together. Unfortunately, today everything is changing, not for the better. Everyone closes in on himself like a snail in a shell." Adriana felt awkward. The women looked at her, expecting support, but the right words were hidden somewhere. So she confined herself to the clumsy phrase, "I agree with you in many ways. But I think it's an unacceptable luxury to talk during working hours. We can talk about current affairs at another time. Now let's get to work. The female employees bowed their heads sullenly over the keyboards of their PCs, and by their eloquent sighs and glances, Adriana realized that she had gone a little overboard with her team building. She headed for her office, a small room separated from the operating room by a thin glass partition. A disgruntled whisper caught up with her. Poor man, how did he live with such a kikimora and a quarter of a century? Though that anonymous remark cut her to the core, Adriana pretended not to hear anything. It had taken her a long time to get in the mood for work. A bad report and an unpleasant conversation with her subordinates marred the good mood she had had since morning. All day, Adriana impatiently looked at the clock, waiting for the end of the working day. In the evening, it started to rain, and she deliberately left her umbrella at home. She had to run to the parking lot where her car was parked, skipping over puddles. Her dainty high stiletto shoes were not designed for such maneuvers, and one heel fell off at the very end of the course. Damn it, what a day today. Everything is against me. There were traffic jams everywhere due to the weather. So Adriana returned home when dusk began to fade. She noticed a light in the windows of the apartment on the third floor and asked herself a question. In their family, it was not customary to warn each other about the time of departure and return. They had initially decided with her husband that there was something humiliating in such reporting, limiting freedom. Alex made many unsuccessful attempts to enforce this custom, but Adriana always ignored his initiative. Her husband finally gave in, and everything fell into a pleasant direction for the woman. Barely had she turned the key when the door swung open on its own. Jenna swooped down on her mother and shyly embraced her in a hug. The girl was taller and stronger than her parent, and Adriana felt like a doll in her arms as well. Jenna calmed down, betraying me. The daughter slightly loosened the vice, Mammy. I'm sorry, its emotions are running wild. I missed you so much. What's the matter with you not telling me you're coming? Couldn't you have called? I wanted to surprise you. Where's Dad? Still at work. Yeah, he's always out late at night in his lab. Adriana felt tired, and the joy of seeing her daughter faded into the background. That surprised Jenna. Mom, you're fine. It's just my imagination. Or are you really not happy that I'm here? The woman looked at her daughter. How could you have gotten such a wild idea into your head? Of course I'm glad. It's just that it's been a busy day, and we're stuck with the report. And then my heel fell off. She demonstrated the element of the shoe that had given her the most trouble today. Jenna shook her head understandingly. Yes, it's much more serious than my unexpected arrival. Daughter, your irony is misplaced. You must realize that there are other things that are important to me besides your interests. Jenna furrowed her eyebrows. Mom, I have learned since childhood that the most important thing in the world is your work and everything connected with it. The girl waved her hands and squeezed her eyes shut. Her eyes went dizzy. Nothing changes in this house, and it always makes me feel dreary. Of course, I didn't expect such a cold reception, but I don't take offense. Jenna helped her mother out of her soaked jacket. Why don't you ask me why I showed up? Jenna, let me catch my breath. Now we'll cook dinner together. My father will come, and you'll tell us everything. The girl smiled enigmatically. I wanted to talk to you purely female, on the secret part. Oh, you have secrets already. Come on, spill it. Jenna grabbed her smartphone. Wait a minute, patience. I'll do more than just tell and show you. Now watch this. Adriana was being looked at from the screen of a mobile device by an imposing man. I'm looking. Who is he? His name is Heinrich Schneider. He's my team leader, a pleasant man, and that's intelligent. Jenna jumped up on the spot. I'm glad you like him. It slowly began to dawn on the mother. The true meaning of her daughter's words. Stop. I don't really understand why you're showing me a picture of this man. Jenna pressed his lips together resentfully. What's not to understand? Mom, Henry and I have a serious relationship, and I might marry him. I'm not quite sure yet, but things are looking up. He's been moving me beautifully, giving me expensive gifts, And last weekend, Henry introduced me to his parents. That's a clear sign that he's serious. Adriana snatched the gadget from her daughter's hands and stared at the strange man's face. Jenna, but your German is in his 40s, and you're only 23. The girl became agitated, which manifested itself in active hand gesticulation. I knew it would start now, when you've already gotten rid of these stereotypes in this country. Everything is conventional. And there they don't pay attention to age and other trifles. Daughter, it's not a small thing. Of course you can do what you want, but I don't want to have to repent. More lectures and threats. I'm sick of it. I shouldn't have come. I wanted to make you happy. I thought it would be a silver anniversary present. Jenna left her mother alone with her unhappy thoughts and went to the kitchen. Already from there, she shouted cheerfully what to cook for dinner. I brought you all sorts of things and even the famous Berlin sausages. Not a minute later, the kitchen was humming. And these pleasant gastronomic sounds were accompanied by the magical aroma of meat. Mom, when is Dad coming? Adriana did not have time to answer because familiar footsteps were heard on the landing. Daughter, Daddy is already here. The head of the family crossed the threshold of the apartment with surprise. What's going on? What magical aromas? We're having a party. The woman nodded toward the kitchen. Jenna arrived, taking over the kitchen. The man, without taking off his shoes, walked into the kitchen, and soon from there came the exclamations of his daughter, Daddy. How happy am I to see you. I'll tell you all about it later. Because if I get distracted, now I'll burn my sausages. In Alex's voice also heard joyful notes. Daughter, you should get some rest. Now I changed my clothes, and I'll help you well on the field. But you can take your time. Adriana's heart pricked painfully. Jealousy. Children from childhood were drawn more towards their father. It had always annoyed her greatly. Jenna was especially attached to her father. She always found a common language with Alex, and he entrusted him with her deepest secrets. On this ground, the spouses used to have frequent spats, but over time they subsided a little. Offenses began to forget, and so this one fell asleep, and the volcano began to awaken. What did the new family quarrel promise? The woman stood in indecision in the middle of the hallway. At first, she wanted to join her daughter and spouse to prepare a family dinner with them. But when she heard their conversation, she changed her mind. She heard her husband and daughter setting the table in the living room. Usually they dined in the kitchen, and only on special occasions was the ceremony moved to the main room. Jealousy was once again a hedgehog beneath her heart, and an inner voice whispered caustically, "The daughter respects her father more. They're good together. I'm superfluous. Only scares people away. Even the closest ones try to stay away from you." She tried not to give in to this voice's urging to stage a domestic discontent action. The other reasonable voice reassured her that there was no reason for discontent. You're a grown woman and a mother, and it's foolish to be jealous of your daughter of her own father. Hide away your resentments and spend this evening in the circle of the closest people. The other voice won. Adriana changed clothes and appeared in the living room just at the moment when Alex solemnly brought a tray with a hot dish. Jenna fooled around heartily, imitating bravura-touche with her lips. It was a family scene that lifted everyone's spirits, and the mother also began to play along with her daddy's daughter. Really, it worked out well with Mom. The man placed the dish in the middle of the table, probably enroll in any brass band without a contest. And in general, you are the most beautiful women in the world. Alex looked at his wife. So she, as once in her youth, her heart trembled. A warm wave spread through her body, drowning out that unpleasant voice that urged her to ignore it. Family dinner. Father, our daughter is here for a reason. She has some unpleasant surprises for us. Adriana looked expressively at the watering can, as if giving the go-ahead for a frank conversation. The girl, without a shadow of embarrassment, began to tell about her life abroad. My dear parents, you know very well that I have ambitious plans for my life. Liga made a beautiful pause to make the right impression. Alex supported her. That's right. Youth is the best time to realize your plans and what our daughter has planned for the near future. Internship in Germany will soon be over, but I want to stay there. The fork rattled loudly, hitting the plate. The father's gaze was no longer good. Jenna, explain to me, please. There's honey all over the place. Why do you all want to go to a foreign land? Papa, why do you react so strongly to such changes? I don't just mean you. Although most normal parents are happy to see their children succeed. According to you, my mom and I aren't normal. Thank you for your candor. I didn't say that. No, Jenna, you specifically emphasized that. And I'm gonna answer you by saying that you're the abnormal wanderer. Both you and Sam, searching for a phantom happiness far from home, not realizing that you are needed where you were born. Jenna stared wide-eyed at her father. Adriana transferred her husband's anxious gaze to her daughter, carefully choosing her words. She tried to extinguish the flames of scandal. Alex, Jenna is really right that she has the right to choose where to live and what profession to devote herself to. I told you that at one time my father was also strongly opposed to my choice. The man looked unkindly at his wife and sharply interrupted her. Ale, I understand your desire to protect your daughter. Yes, she has many rights, but you can't forget her responsibilities. I agree that you can get education abroad. Although our country has plenty of prestigious universities, you can improve your professional level there. But to change citizenship, I'm sorry, but for me personally, it's unacceptable. The head of the family hesitated a little and added, your personal example does not fit because you did not go abroad, but stayed here and today you work here. I too found a job to my liking in my homeland, despite many difficulties. Jenna sang unhappily and moved her fork around the plate. Dad, of course, your example and Mom's can be considered a model, but things change, and you are simply unwilling to readjust. Adriana looked at her daughter with horror, who did not immediately realize that she had crossed the forbidden line. Alex was furious at Jenna's statement. We've been through this before, so rebuilt that we lost the country. It's up to you, Jenna, but know that I strongly disapprove of your decision. The girl defiantly left the table. Well, that's dinner. I shouldn't have come here. Adriana remained silent, her eyes downcast. At that moment, she had no idea how her husband would feel about the news that her daughter was going to marry a burgher almost twice her age. In the evening, when things had quieted down a bit, Jenna snuck into the kitchen where her mother was doing the dishes. Mom, don't tell Dad about Heinrich yet. I won't. I will. But you know you can't keep things like this a secret for long. It'll all come out one day. I know it will. But maybe I'll tell you later, when Dad's in a good mood. Tell me, he's always like that. Adriana shrugged uncertainly. I don't know what to tell you, daughter. He's always at work. I'm busy too. We meet only in the evening. The girl exclaimed in surprise. Well, that's not right. What do you think is right? I always thought that a family is when two people not only occupy the same living space, but also live in common interests. And so it turns out that you and Dad are just neighbors. The woman looked at her daughter carefully and answered her sluggishly. Unfortunately, not always our desires coincide with the possibilities. It's hard for me to explain it to you, but the day will come, and you'll realize it yourself one day. Although I really wish that everything will turn out differently for you and Sam. I used to look my elders in the mouth too. I took my father's every word as the ultimate truth, and only once did I do things my own way. I hugged my mother lightly. Do you regret it now? I guess I do. But it doesn't matter now. It's too late to change. Adriana's mother was a mute shadow of her father. Daniel was the sole decision-maker, and Kelly only nodded her head in agreement, since the girl was learning and came very late. She was brought up in hothouse conditions. A whole team of grandmothers and aunts were ready to fulfill any whim of the little caprice at any moment. Daniel also allowed his favorite everything she wanted. The negative sides, such as permissiveness, began to appear later. But even the strict father was no longer able to change anything. The first shock, the parents experienced when the daughter declared that she wanted to enter the Faculty of Economics, and we almost had a stroke with Daniel because he dreamed that his daughter would continue the family business and become a doctor. For 3 days, Daniel didn't speak to her, and on the 4th day, he broke through. Ale, think carefully before you make a final decision. Economics is boring and tedious. It's worse than working in a library. We've been household names in this town for almost 2 centuries. I was hoping you'd continue the ophthalmologist dynasty, or at least become a pharmacist. Like my uncle Gregory. Her father's speech was very convincing, and Adriana hesitated even for a second. But her uncertainty was only an echo of her harsh upbringing, and she stood resolutely in defense of her future. Daddy, why do you think I'm wrong? Are you right? Because I'm a father, and after all, I'm older than you. I have a lot of life experience. But Dad, you've had those experiences on your own without any help, haven't you? Yeah. What's your point? My point, Dad, is that I want to learn things on my own without any help. I hope you understand. Daniel looked at his daughter as if he was seeing her for the first time. In his heart, he understood that Adriana had grown up, and it was time for her to go on an independent flight. But the loving father did not want to let the chick out of the nest, because he was very afraid for her. He thought that his daughter would continue to live under his wing, and everyone would be fine. But Adriana saw a different future for herself. Daddy, thank you for your concern, but I'll do what I think is right. I may regret it later, but it will be my mistake, and I have to fix it. Daniel is at peace, although he had been worried for a long time. But another blow awaited the not-so-young man soon. Adriana graduated from university with honors. You were already working, so the father could not control his daughter. When she came home late, he only grumbled and threw angry glances in her direction. Daniel also reacted negatively to the news that Adriana would be a witness at a friend's wedding. Why do you want to go to all that trouble? Well, going to a friend's wedding is certainly necessary, but it is not at all necessary to take part in this action. It is enough just to be present as a guest, to say kind words to the newlyweds. I don't see why you have to make a big deal out of it. And you can't be a toastmaster. Why do you think that? Because you're not a public person. You're shy, and your speech is not confident. It's your girlfriend's. At a wedding, you should be a confident, dashing, uninhibited young lady. Adriana was very upset with her father at the time. I didn't realize that you had such a low opinion of my abilities. Dad, I'm sorry, but I'll think 100 times before I say anything to you. And that's a promise she kept. Adriana didn't tell her parents that she'd met a young officer at her friend's wedding, nor did they find out about the romantic dates of the couple in love. The daughter put in the knowledge of her mother and father that she was getting married only a week before the wedding, and that Adriana decided to take this step only because she did not want to disregard the established traditions. The meeting with her son-in-law passed in a tense atmosphere when Alex, thanking for dinner, bowed politely. Daniel swooped down on his daughter. Al, what are you doing? Are you really going to marry that soldier boy? But her father's shouts didn't scare the girl as before. Dad, don't you think you have no moral right to insult someone you just don't like? For your information, this, as you say, soldier boy, a bunch of awards. Alex has been where no government official would send his son. It's people like Alex that keep our fragile world together, literally and figuratively. In amazement, Daniel couldn't get a word out. He didn't want to believe that it was his obedient daughter who was so vigorously defending the boys from a working family, and the realization of his helplessness depressed the father more than anything else. The next day, on the background of nervous shock, the man had a heart attack, and he went to the hospital for a month. This event affected the daughter's relationship with her mother. Kelly suddenly erupted character, and she began to reproach her daughter. You gave your own father a heart attack, and he devoted his whole life to you. He's done so much good. The woman disappeared in the hospital, and when she appeared for a short time, she did not talk to her daughter at home. Adriana caught herself thinking that her father's illness was an artifice, a simulation of her parents. Perhaps they had chosen this last and toughest option to influence the disobedient daughter. But Adriana did not change her mind. True, from a noisy wedding, she and Alex refused, limited to the standard procedure of signing. The last act of demonstration of independence was the departure of the daughter from the parental home. Despite financial problems, the young family moved to a rented apartment, and the parents gave up. The very next day, they came to the newlyweds. By that time, Daniel had already been discharged from the hospital. He immediately from the doorstep began to reproach his daughter. "Why didn't you warn us? Our mom and I villains. We only wish you happiness. And you, Alex, you could have talked some sense into your wife. I guess you don't do that to your parents." Alex looked at Adriana confusedly, and she at him. Suddenly, Kelly came to the rescue. "Since we came to your house, you should greet the guests properly." The newlyweds looked at each other again. The woman got that look right. "Adriana, do you think your parents are clueless?" "No, you're dead wrong. Your father and I stopped by the grocery store and bought you groceries for the week. So now you and I are going to prepare a celebratory dinner." Kelly was an excellent cook. She knew hundreds of recipes of dishes from available products. Adriana had never been interested in cooking because she was used to living on everything. But family life required her to be more active. For several months, she diligently adopted experience from her mother. Alex praised his young wife, Ajapa. "You are a real magician. Don't Hezbollah me with tasty Tina." The young woman blushed from embarrassment and every day tried to diversify the menu. But the idyllic period of family life was short-lived. After the birth of Jenna Woman, all the attention turned to a young daughter. No sooner had she entered the working rhythm after the first maternity leave, as she became pregnant with a second child. There was nowhere to wait for help because Kelly had died. Adriana's mother passed away as quietly and unnoticed as she had lived. It was useless to expect participation from Denis Eduardovich because the elderly man needed help himself, and Adriana had already decided that one child was enough. But her husband was of a different opinion. "Adriana, if you dare to terminate the pregnancy, you and I will divorce. I'm not threatening, just warning." The woman tried to oppose him. "Alex, but we will not pull 2 children with you. The difference is too small and there's no help now. Why did you forget that I also have parents, and they will be just happy to take care of grandchildren?" "Alex, what are you talking about? Where do your parents live?" "In the middle of nowhere. And you think to send them to the backwoods, where there is no normal medical care, not to mention kindergarten and school. You won't believe it, but people live and work even in the backwoods. And imagine, they feel no less happy there than you do in the regional center." Adriana cried in despair because she couldn't break her husband's resistance, and then she decided to make one last argument. "Alex, I'm sick of the word maternity leave. It's again necessary to voluntarily renounce active life for several years. It depends on what you mean by that term. At least a job. I had great prospects, and now I can forget about my career forever." Alex wanted to say something, but stumbled halfway through. He looked at his wife's face for a long time, and then said, "You know, this is the first time in my life I meet a woman for whom career is more important than family welfare. You know my opinion. Do what you want." There was no one to consult. The only friend she could trust had left with her husband for the north. She had not yet made any useful connections at work. For several days, the woman agonizingly thought over the deadlock and realized that her work was more important to her. In the morning, she informed her husband of her decision and then went to see the medics. But a bitter disappointment awaited her. The elderly gynecologist, after examination, looked at her as if she wanted to drill holes. "Young lady, are you very late?" Adriana stunned. "Well, that can't be right. I always keep an eye on the calendar, and by my calculations, I'm only at week 11. The doctor took a break from filling out the chart. "Sweetheart, you can shove your calculations in. I don't dare call this place out, but you know where it is." The baby moved soon enough. I'm putting you at 13 to 14 weeks, but I'm sending you to the diagnostic center to confirm. They have state-of-the-art equipment. Adriana was crying. Doctor, please help me. And there's no way we can go into labor now. The doctor looked at the young woman with sympathy. What is it? What's the problem? Has the husband left you? No, on the contrary, my husband wants a second child. And I can't. Exhausted, her patted Adriana on the shoulder. Nothing, you'll give birth to a second baby will be a second breath, like a marathon runner from the distance. And you have the right husband. Men like that should be cherished. When Adriana came home in tears, Alex at first thought that she fulfilled her intention without saying a word. He began to pack his things. The woman snatched the traveling bag from him. You can rejoice. I'll have to give birth because I'm too late. It's too late. After this family drama, relations between the couple deteriorated, but they both tried not to let on that things had changed. They were each trying to imitate a happiness that wasn't really there. It was just two people coexisting. They had breakfast and dinner together in the same apartment. They also raised two children. By the way, the youngest Sam did not even realize that his birth was once under great doubt. The couple also avoided the subject. Almost a quarter of a century flashed by in this mode of reticence. It was time to summarize their life together. Before that, Adriana and Alex were also afraid. After all, for all the years of marriage, only 2 moments could be considered positive. This is the birth of a daughter and then a son. Jenna took on the preparation for the anniversary celebration. Although the parents strongly objected to a noisy celebration, she insisted on a banquet with the participation of a large number of guests. Mom and Dad, I don't know why you're both so resistant to this. In my opinion, it is great that you have lived in peace and harmony for 25 years, and I think it is a crime not to celebrate this event in the widest possible format. Alex cited chronic business. Let go. I don't have time to catch my breath at work. We have a deadline for an important project. Also, I have to go on a business trip the other day. Adriana explained her reluctance to celebrate her silver jubilee with big expenses. Daughter, Daddy and I don't want to throw money away. It can be spent on other more useful things. Jenna wouldn't give up. You have everything, don't you, Mom? What do you lack for a comfortable life? Daddy, and you can reschedule your trip. Is there no one besides you to hand in the project and go on a business trip? A few days the girl spent on persuasion, but she had to involve her brother in the process. Rarely call his parents because such communication sessions were too expensive. Therefore, Jenna sacrificed part of her savings and herself called her brother in the evening. The couple was thrilled to be able to talk to their son and even see him. For about half an hour, Sam talked about his sports successes, and at the end of the conversation he said, "Dear parents, if you do not celebrate the date of your wedding in a human way, I will stay for eternity in America. I declare to you in all seriousness." Perhaps it was the son's threat or the daughter's daily persuasion. But at a general family meeting, the date of the celebration was approved as a result of disputes. Happy Jenna ordered the parents to make a guest list, and I will take care of the rest. The whole evening Adriana sat and thought. She suddenly realized that she had no friends at all. She had no choice but to put her boss Anthony on the guest list, Wendy and Helen, and a few others from her department. Alex's list was a little longer. Her daughter remarked with surprise, "You don't have a lot of friends." To be honest, I didn't even expect that. I'll have to bring my acquaintances for extras. During the lunch break, Adriana handed out beautifully designed invitations to everyone. The coworkers were surprised. Helen was especially excited. "I have never had to attend an event like this before, but I'm sure it will be fun and interesting." Wendy jokingly precipitated the girl. "Of course, it would be great if talkers like you would behave properly." Helen wasn't even embarrassed. "You offend Wendy. And I'd like to point out that I'm not the only one in our friendly group who suffers from verbal incontinence. By the way, it's a common disease that's transmitted by contact." That is, from older employees to younger ones. Helen's joke was so good that even Adriana laughed heartily. Wendy apparently threatened the girl with her fist. "Well, wait. At my place. We'll be alone. I'll show you harsh methods of education." The chief also gratefully accepted the invitation. "My wife and I will definitely be there." Despite her young age, Jenna immediately realized something was going on between her parents. There had been spats in the family before, but they hadn't lasted long. At least the children didn't feel the estrangement that had plagued Jenna from the first day they arrived. She immediately sounded the alarm and called her brother. "Sam, we have a disaster. The parents are on edge. I think they might get a divorce." Her brother tried to calm her down. "Are you exaggerating as usual? Is it common for you women to panic over the smallest of things? Don't think I'm stupid. My intuition is always unmistakable, and I assure you, everything is very disturbing. But even if it is as you say, you can't make them live any differently." "Yes, I can. Sam, and you have to help me." "Jenna, how am I gonna help you? I can't even snap out of it. I'm under contract right now." "Oh, he can't, but I can. Just so you know, I took care of an unscheduled vacation in advance and came to my folks' house for their wedding anniversaries. So, not much positive. I'm afraid I won't be able to organize a party for them. I mean, they're like kindergartners. Kids only hear themselves and only accept their requests. But I'm stubborn too. What do you want me to do?" "It's nothing special. Just talk to them like an adult. I'm signaling when the time is right." Still, I had to Skype my brother so he could convince the parents. That method worked on the adults, and Jenna began to prepare for the gala in earnest, especially since she had only 3 days to do everything. Of course, to cope alone was almost impossible, and the girl found a classmate who was engaged in organizing such events. The culprits of the celebration were also involved in the preparation. General care for a short time to melt the ice of misunderstanding between the spouses, and the day before the event happened incredible. Thanks to the incredible efforts of Jenna, they were left alone in the apartment. Embarrassed and blushing, Alex asked his wife, "Please tell me what tie will suit my gray suit better." Adriana came to life. "Alex, you decided to wear a gray suit, but it's too formal. I think a steel checkered jacket would be more suitable for such an occasion. The effect is so reminiscent of the shine of silver. By the way, I also bought a dress especially for this special evening, and it seems to me that my outfit will harmonize with yours." Curiosity appeared in the man's eyes. Suddenly, he suggested, "Maybe we should try, so to speak, to have a dress rehearsal." "Alex, you're right." It didn't take more than 10 minutes to get ready. They stood side by side and looked at their reflection in the large mirror of the closet. Both of them were very nervous. Adriana whispered, "Alex, is it really us? I can't believe it either. We've been together for a quarter of a century, but we've so rarely been alone together. I'm just now realizing how much I've missed. Alex, I regret a lot of things too. There are many things I would like to change." The man gently drew his wife to him and kissed her, as he had not kissed her for a long time. At that moment, Jenna returned. The girl pretended not to have caught the touching scene, although her soul was rejoicing. She assessed the appearance of the Jubilees and remarked with satisfaction that you look beautiful together. "Hasn't anyone ever told you before that you are a beautiful couple?" They looked at each other again and laughed. "Daughter, you have done such a thing to us that your mother, and I can't believe it." Jenna concluded with a triumphant look. "This is exactly what I wanted. You have no idea how much I love you. And Sam cares too. And I originally wanted to give you an unusual gift to take you back to the time when you first met." Adriana cried. Alex, as a child, hugged Jenna and stroked her, neatly tucked in. "Thank you, daughter. You've made it all work. It's like my mom and I got a second wind, an unparalleled feeling." The next day, the couple received congratulations and smiles on their faces. Jenna was enjoying herself as much as the master. Well done, having done her job. As she fell asleep that night, She thought, now I can return to Germany and continue my apprenticeship with peace of mind. The couple saw their daughter off together. The farewell was long and touching, and when the plane took to the sky, Alex sadly said, "Our angel has flown away. You know, I just now realized that you and I did not give our daughter for nothing. The name Jenna. She fits it perfectly. Alex, there's so much I want to say to you, and so much I want to apologize for. Don't, Adriana. I forgave you long ago. Let's not rehash the past. Let's try to start over. This is the best time for that." Indeed, for several weeks the couple enjoyed intimacy. Their feelings flared up with renewed vigor, and they tried to keep the fire burning in their hearts. Adriana was now impatiently looking at her watch, waiting for the end of the workday. She was hurrying home to cook dinner and talk about trivia with her husband. Alex also changed his work schedule because he knew his loving wife was waiting for him at home. He again, as in his youth, gave her flowers and said beautiful words. The spouses often went out in the evenings and already made plans for the upcoming vacation. Admit it, you dreamed of going somewhere in your youth. Alex, have you decided to fulfill my girlhood dreams? It's not too late. My dear, you're a compliment. Is that a bad thing? Don't you have any words for me? If I could write poetry, I'd dedicate a whole poem to you. And seriously, I often catch myself in the last days that you and I are both crazy. Sometimes it's good to step out of line. If it wasn't for our silver jubilee of lyric intervention, you and I would have continued our boring existence. That evening, they also decided to take a walk before going to bed. During the day, the heat melts the asphalt, and only at night, big city Topolov pleasant coolness and fragrance of flowers. Alex has long wanted to tell his wife about the fact that for many years he did not give him peace, but he could not find a convenient moment to start a serious conversation. They went to the premiere of a new movie and were returning home. The man started from afar. In the life of each of us, there are events that we do not give importance to at once, and when we realize it, it is already too late. Alex, don't be so gloomy. It was such a good movie you and I saw. Personally, I really enjoyed it. I also liked the plot, and especially the ending. Unfortunately, in life not always the heroes have a happy ending. Alex, yourself, how can the final part of life be happy? It is impossible in principle, because the end of life is death. In movies as well as in books, everything is cut off at some point, and the audience and the reader have to figure out for themselves what the heroes can happen next. I think it is this feature that attracts the audience, because it involuntarily involves everyone in creative participation. It's an interesting interpretation. I've never come to that conclusion, although I have more than once in real life found myself at that fatal line beyond which there is no continuation. I hope you understand me. Adriana looked at her husband as if he were a child, not a grown man, and her answer to the important question was too hasty. Of course, darling, I understand, but I beg you, let's save all the serious talk for tomorrow. I guess you want to tell me something very important to you. But it seems to me that you chose the wrong moment. Alex expected a completely different reaction from his wife, although her indifference to his problems has long been the daily norm. Hopes for any changes melted away completely. All the rest of the way the man was silent, but his wife did not notice the changes in his mood. She talked about her work and funny incidents in the team. Then the woman remembered her daughter's last call. Alex walked beside him and almost did not listen to his wife's sweet chatter. Somewhere near her temple a thought pulsed. Nothing about Alex. She doesn't care about your desires. She's completely indifferent to your present past life. And the changes of the last weeks are just a ghostly mirage. It won't be long before everything goes back to the way it was. But in the morning, Adriana suddenly remembered yesterday's conversation. Alex, did you want to tell me some terrible secret? Or have you changed your mind? The man was already holding on to the door now, because there was no time to talk. He kissed his wife gently on the cheek. I'm sorry, darling. Not now. I'm in a hurry. All right. Then we'll talk tonight. Ah, you must have forgotten that I'm leaving on a business trip. There's a launch party for our project in Vienna, and I have to be there for sure. But I'll be back in 2 days. The woman grumbled unhappily. All you have some kind of riddles. Can't you just tell me what's going on? Just 2 words won't do it. It's a long conversation. I've been wanting to tell you a lot of things myself for a long time. You might even be able to help me. Now that's interesting. Okay, Alex, I'll look forward to your return. And don't forget, vacation's coming up. And you promised me an unforgettable trip. I remember everything. Our footsteps were already hushed downstairs, and the woman also began to hurriedly get ready for work. The vacation time was approaching, and Adriana decided to take an early start on the semi-annual report. She had been sitting up since morning without lifting her head because there were discrepancies in the results again. Helen loomed nearby behind the glass, and she knocked to get the young employee's attention. The girl immediately appeared. Adriana, was it just me? Or did you really paged me? Yes, I need you. If it's not too much trouble, please find the report for the previous quarter. Okay, I'll be right back. The girl did indeed return a few minutes later with a massive folder in her hands. Is there anything else I can help you with? You'll be here all night with this pile of documents. Adriana looked at her subordinate carefully. You're right, and it's time to get you into serious work. Come here, I'll show you what you need to check. To the surprise of her superior, Helen quickly found the error in her talent. She explained with childlike naivety, I had a special flair for mismatched calculations back in school. I was even sometimes asked by my teachers to find an error in complex formulas. And that worked out for you? Of course I did. In kindergarten, I was discovered to have a talent for math, and my parents were advised to develop this gift. And then I started to take care of my reputation myself and constantly train my brain. When I entered the university, I surprised my teachers in the first semester. And what did you surprise them with? I learned some of the higher math on my own for fun. And when I had the chance, I demonstrated my knowledge. I didn't know you were an ambitious girl. I admit, I didn't even realize you had unique abilities. Oh, Adriana, numbers aren't my only passion. I memorize faces too. Once I see a person, they're in my file cabinet. The boss even put aside her file folder. Helen, you're surprising me more and more every minute. Is it really possible? Remembering a random person is easy. Here's a relatively recent example. I've only seen your husband once. And then yesterday, bam, I run into him at the mall. I ran in to get a few little things, and I see a familiar face. Well, I immediately remembered your anniversary party. Was your husband wearing a jacket? He was at the Oasis with a young girl. Your daughter, I believe. I didn't get to meet her at the banquet. I thought it was her. Jenna spoke passionately about her phenomenal visual memory. Adriana sat there stunned. Helen, you were mistaken. You were the other man because my husband flew out yesterday morning. The girl rounded her eyes. What are you, Adriana? And I have never been wrong yet. It was definitely your husband. With a girl, huh? She was all right. But she's not dressed very well. I'd say she's about 25 plus or minus 2 years. She's short brown hair. Helen began to describe the stranger's appearance. Adriana shook her head. No, that's not our daughter. Except that Jenna is in Germany right now, and her hair is blonde. Her manner of dress was also a complete mismatch. Helen wanted to complete the portrait of the stranger, but looking at the supervisor, stopped talking. She sat motionless, staring at one point. The girl glared at the supervisor, who was in prostration. Adriana, are you sick? Wake up. Can I get you some water? With an effort of will, the woman shook off her stupor. Thank you, Helen. No water. I'm fine. And you're free to go. Adriana spent the rest of the day in her office. She didn't keep track of time. The world around her seemed to drown in a dense fog. The women through the glass partition watched their supervisor with excitement. Wendy called Helen to account. You've been in Adriana's office for over an hour. Admit you've been blabbing something to her. The girl shrugged her shoulders in bewilderment. Why are you all bothering me? I didn't tell her anything special. We talked about the reports. Adriana praised me, said I had a phenomenal memory. And I said I could remember faces the first time I saw them. That's all. That made the man go into a stupor. The girl's forehead. Something strange began to happen to her after I said that I met her husband at the mall, and he was there in the company of a young woman. The oldest woman on the staff went ballistic. Helen, will you ever learn to think before you use your tongue? Isn't it hard for you to realize that not everything can be said, that there are some limits of decency? Don't get on my nerves. I didn't make up anything. I just told you what I saw with my own eyes. And you're clueless. The girl snapped back. Do you, Wendy, learn from experience? The woman whispered at Helen, and the latter, nose turned upward, left the office. By evening, the news that Adriana's wife had a young mistress had traveled all the floors of the regional statistics office. The women whispered, the unhappy men suffered, including Anthony, condemned the unfaithful husband in silence. However, it was not surprising, since almost everyone had his own sin. At home, Adriana spent the whole evening in front of the television. One program was replaced by another, but she couldn't make sense of what she saw and heard. She switched channels stupidly, hoping that this way she would get rid of her growing anger. Again, something disgusting stirred inside, and an unpleasant evil voice whispered subserviently, I warned you, and you didn't listen. Now you've got strangers poking you in the eye about your husband's left-handedness. What are you gonna do about it? Probably just pretend like you always do. That nasty voice had been talking for a long time, promising her the most heinous things in the near future, and she believed it, because there was no other voice. The woman didn't notice how she fell asleep in front of the TV with the remote control in her hand, and in the morning her head split open, and she barely restrained herself from venting her accumulated irritation on her coworkers. Alex showed up late in the evening. He looked tired, which he immediately informed his wife about. Hey, lunch, so you've been traveling so much for this trip. What are we having for dinner tonight? The woman with a nonchalant look replied, I'm sorry, Alex, but I didn't have time to cook anything. Been on the run all day yesterday and today. The man looked at his wife attentively, but she, without giving away her excitement, suggested that if you want, I can make you some eggs. Alex wrinkled his nose. Are you kidding? Or have you forgotten that I'm allergic to eggs? Well, you can separate the yolk from the whites. It's not hard for me. By the way, it'll be good for men's health and a meal. Thank you for caring about my health. But I'd rather make a couple sandwiches for myself. Adriana stretched lazily and also indifferently asked, Alex, what flight did you take? Wasn't anything canceled? I heard there was a hurricane this morning. It was a blow to the solar plexus. Alex froze with a loaf in his hand. His wife looked at him expectantly. Alex, you didn't answer me. The man fought frantically, but nothing rational came to mind. So he grabbed the first thought that slipped into his neck. Adriana, you see, here's the thing. Comrades came to our plight, offered us another form of air transportation. I wasn't the only one there with a whole team of specialists. Anyway, they took us home by helicopter. I did not tell you right away, because there are things that are not allowed to spread. I hope you understand that. Oh yeah, Alex, I get it. It's a tough job. It's a brotherhood of warriors out there, and you got lucky on a helicopter just like you got a cab ride up to the driveway. Ale, I don't understand your irony, or do you suspect me of something? Are you? I was just wondering what flight you were on. That's all. The woman once again looked carefully at her husband and left the kitchen. Alex remained standing with a loaf of bread. He could not understand his wife's strange behavior, and with irritation muttered under his nose, what a fly bit her again, devouring the meager dinner. The man did not suspect that his main secret, which he had kept for many years, had been revealed. That evening he had no idea that the culprit of all the trouble that followed was an ordinary girl, Helen, with an unusual talent. Adriana, too, had no idea what twist of fate would soon await her. The turmoil of the last 2 days and sapped her reserve of fortitude, and she fell instantly. Restless sleep. In the morning, she didn't bother to wake her husband and left the house early. Emotions receded into the background. Rational thinking doubled in intensity. This is the characteristic of most people whose life is connected with numbers. Adriana made a 2-point schedule on a separate sheet of paper of the dates of her husband's business trips and the time of departure to the destination. Since she was a high-level professional, both boxes were filled in about 5 minutes. Now the woman had to analyze the data for the last few months, which was also a routine for her. She remembered phone numbers and dates at a glance. But there were only 2 matches on the sheet filled with columns of numbers. She stared at the adjusted columns of numbers as if spellbound, unable to understand how this could have happened to her. Alex had been lying to me all along. Why hadn't I noticed it before? Anyway, I never cared about his work, so I got a present, which is now being discussed not only in the offices, but also in the toilets of our institution. So much for the silver jubilee and a happy marriage. This message, addressed to herself, she said in a whisper, but admitting that she herself was partly to blame, while unconfirmed in the fact of her husband's infidelity was not very desirable. Had it not been for Helen's talent, she would still have been in ignorance. Her brain, set to work fast, was throwing up various options for solving her personal problem. The voice that had repeatedly told her the only right way out had also awakened. The main thing is not to go to extremes. Helen, observations do not say anything concrete, so you need to check everything. Out loud she confirmed, yes, I have to check everything myself. It was like a stone had been dropped from my soul. But there was one more important thing that gave her confidence. During all the years of marriage, Alex has always been a model family man. Of course, and exemplary husband's walk, but still there was no evidence of infidelity at the moment. The next 2 weeks passed without adventures. The spouses were slowly preparing for the upcoming joint vacation. One evening, Alex came home earlier than usual, and his face was shining with happiness. And you and I are fabulously lucky. We just happened to have 2 vacation packages on offer. My colleague's wife works in a travel agency, and I shared with my colleague that I wanted to give my wife an unforgettable vacation. Oh, by the way, Jenna didn't call. Adriana took the 2 colorful envelopes in her hands and answered her husband's last question. No, our daughter has dropped off the radar. She's probably taking tests. They're strict there in Germany. No deviations from the regulations. I talked to my husband at the same time as I studied the vouchers. Suddenly, the woman exclaimed, Alex, in surprise. I don't understand anything. Why Miami? We wanted to spend time in the tropics. But in an extreme case in Europe, the attack of joy went down Alex and left the bathroom, wiping his hands on the way. How is Miami worse than Bali? Aldi, I don't know how to please you anymore. People hunt for such vouchers, and you refuse. You often remind me of the Princess Nesmian from a fairy tale. You're hard to please. The man sank down on the sofa without strength and wrapped his arms around his head. To be honest, I'm sometimes afraid to cross the threshold of this apartment. Why? Because you're always dissatisfied with something. All right. The Miami resort is canceled. Give me the vouchers. I'm sure there's plenty of people who'd love to get their hands on a trip for 2 in the middle of the summer season. I'm sure there will be plenty. He held out his hand with determination, but the woman wouldn't give him the vouchers. Alex, wait. Do not be so hot. I didn't say anything like that. I just reminded about our plans with you and against the sunny city of Miami. That's okay with me too, and you don't have to give the vouchers to anyone. Adriana neatly laid out on the table colorful envelopes that her husband was given in the travel company in addition to the vouchers. Alex, I just now noticed the date. Why didn't you tell me it was less than a week away? I haven't even written a vacation request yet. You're not the only one. I haven't done anything about it either. Our boss is such a bore. I wish he wouldn't change. And our Anthony is always cooperative. We're sure he won't object. especially since I haven't taken a vacation in 2 years. Alex called this morning and said that he will be given a vacation if he turns in all the cases. Puzzled by this news, the woman asked, "So what's the problem?" She heard her husband sigh. "The problem is that I didn't have time to do all the paperwork. To do that, I need to go to Minsk." "Well, if that's what it takes, then go." The man's excited. "Yes, I decided to leave today. The plane leaves in 2 o'clock, and I still have to go home to get my things." "Good thing you warned me not to delay and have a safe trip." Adriana disconnected the phone. Her husband's unscheduled business trip was changing everything, and the woman realized that she had to act now, hastily writing a statement. She hurried to the head of the department. Fortunately, Anthony was in attendance. He didn't even look at the application. "Did you want to go on vacation?" "Adriana, yes. My husband took a hot vacation. Can you believe how lucky he got? 2 weeks in Miami." The chief raised his eyes to the ceiling. "Really fabulous luck. Okay, I don't mind your vacation. So starting tomorrow, you can rest easy." "Anthony, is it possible today?" The man looked at his watch and was surprised to notice that almost half of the working day had already passed. "What's the hurry?" "It's very necessary. You do realize that a woman always has more things to do, especially before you leave." "I want to go shopping, go to the beauty parlor." "I kind of missed that." "Sure, you can go about your business right now. Give Valentina the reports and go." Adriana tried to catch the green wave on the road to avoid warming up to her husband. She decided to follow him in such a way as to remain unnoticed. The woman was confident of the success of the operation. After all, her husband thought she was at work. She was so keen on the idea of catching him red-handed that she almost failed the whole operation at the very beginning. She spotted her husband's car too late, and there was no time to think. So she had to weave through the first archway she came across, and despite the sign warning that traffic was not allowed here, but the conduct on this day was favorable to her. And this serious offense went unnoticed. After waiting a few minutes, she returned to the main street and moved to the opposite side, where parking was allowed. The appearance of the Alex car did not have to wait long. Trying to remain unnoticed, the woman, strictly observing the speed limit, slowly followed the object of observation. She had already prepared to change lanes so that she could turn onto the highway to the airport. But her husband passed by, and she had to follow him. Soon Adriana guessed that he was heading for the exit of the city. The regional center was approached closely from different sides by dacha settlements. They used to be unremarkable villages of various caliber. But with the advent of civilization, they were transformed and became attractive for living. In one of such settlements, Alex stopped near the local market, where at 12 o'clock it was quite crowded. Adriana easily found convenient places for observation. Soon a young woman ran up to her husband and, actively gesticulating with her hands, began to explain something to him. He smiled and nodded his head in response. Adriana's patience reached the highest point, and she resolutely dialed her husband's number. "Alex, where are you?" She saw how her husband became focused in his companion. He made a sign for her to be silent, and himself cheerfully threw into the phone. "Honey, I'm at the airport standing in line to check in. I'm sorry, it's very noisy. I don't feel comfortable talking, and I'm running out of time. Let me call you back when they get here." "Okay, Alex. Just be careful and watch your stuff." "What stuff?" "Oh, I'm disconnecting." It was my turn. The distance was short, and she saw a boy of about 5 years old run up to the woman with whom her husband was communicating. For a while, the kid looked at Alex with interest, then jumped on the spot with delight. This is what children usually do when adults promise to buy them a desired toy. The man stretched out his arms and picked up the boy. The child's joyful squeal reached his wife's vantage point as well. Adriana felt a nauseating lump come up to her throat, and misty clouds blurred before her eyes. They were tears of resentment and helplessness. The woman glanced in the direction where a few minutes ago A happy scene involving her husband had unfolded before her eyes. But there was no longer Elika there, nor the young woman with the boy. A sound reminiscent of a wounded beast burst from her chest. Tear streams were building along her cheeks. Lips that had no lips silently whispered how he could, and for what I will not forgive him for this. An invisible creature with a nasty voice immediately reminded her of herself. Deciding it was time for the main repchena of the day. Well, Adriana, convinced. Did you really swallow all that? I think you should take revenge on that girl with the baby she said was near your husband. You can't forgive that. Powerful doses of adrenaline spurred her to do something reckless, and she took off at a high rate of speed. Therefore, the return trip was not long, but not safe. The woman's heart overflowed. Her feelings did not allow her to concentrate on the road situation, and she almost became the perpetrator of an accident, but she reacted in time. After that, she already began to drive more carefully. Her husband, as promised, called in the evening, cheerfully informing her that he had sorted everything out. Adriana, are you still awake? No, darling. I'm watching a soap opera. It works better than any sleeping pill. How are you doing? I'm fine. I managed to sort out a few things. I'll be back tomorrow night. The man was silent, and then in a wizard's voice said, Darling, I hope you haven't forgotten that we have a mind-blowing vacation ahead of us. Trying not to betray his state of mind. She answered in the same voice, No, honey, I remember. Today I even went to the coma at the same time. I have to prepare my closet for such a familiar event as a vacation. You did the right thing. Oh, and don't forget to bring that gorgeous dress you wore to the banquet. You look gorgeous in it. If you have any money problems, you can use my card. Thank you, Alex. But that won't be necessary. I already have vacation pay. She deliberately lied to her husband because she was promised vacation pay by the end of the week. That is, just before she left. But she felt no remorse for her deliberate lie. If he has lied to me for so many years, why am I forbidden to do so? It is not without reason that they say that one must use the methods of the enemy, and then the result will be assured. In the evening, she watched television, while she thought about a plan of revenge. But all the options that came to mind were unfeasible. She would never dare to take extreme measures in the genre of twisted detective, and she was not familiar with soft ways without sacrifice and bloodshed. Tired and exhausted by the angry adventures of the woman, falling asleep thought, It is necessary to find out everything by herself, and then to act. Professional experience told her that it was not difficult to find out useful information about a person living in a small village. But Adriana decided not to hurry. First of all, she was afraid to do something stupid in a fever. After all, such a dish as revenge is served cold. The second reason for the delay stemmed from the first. She did not want to accidentally run into her husband, so she decided to wait for his return from a business trip and then begin to implement her plan of investigation. Alex returned not in the evening, but in the afternoon. Adriana asked with a chuckle, Did you arrive by helicopter again? The man sighed in the hallway with ostensible fatigue, but his wife's ironic remark had an icy shower effect on him. Listen, Ale, isn't it time to stop all this? I don't like it that you've been studying all my actions lately as if under a microscope. No, I'm not. God forbid I do something like that. I just want to understand what airline you use on your important business trips, the usual standard services. You can check the schedule. Imagine, I believed and found out that flights to Pinsk are only 3 times a week on odd-numbered days, and back 3 times a week, but on even-numbered days. And what day is today? That's right, July 21. The man said irritably, It's useless to explain anything to you anyway. And I don't intend to make excuses. Yes, I have an obligation that I can't neglect. And I'm doing it. That's fine. And it's a commitment. A young woman with a child. Adriana, why do you always try to corner me? Don't let me say anything. I don't think I need to say anything because words are meaningless, and I don't want to listen to these endless lies anymore. Leave me alone, and you can sleep in the living room tonight." Trying to stop his wife, Alex grabbed her hand, but she screamed at him, hurting me. "My dad was right when he called you soldier boy. You've got the attitude and the behavior." That hurtful remark. It's completely discouraged a man from compromising with his wife. If you're so annoyed by my, as you put it, soldier boy ways, I can get out of your sight altogether. I don't know why you married me at all if your father was against it. Get the vouchers ready. I'll turn them in tomorrow. I have no desire to spend a vacation with such a soulless creature like you. Alex took the pillow and the plate and headed for the door. Adriana shouted after him, "Of course, why do you need a wife when you have a young mistress?" She burst into hysterical laughter. "By the way, you can go to Miami with her. She'd appreciate it. Just don't forget to buy her some decent clothes." The door closed behind her husband a long time ago with a bang. Adriana was still shouting insults at him. Her heart rolled in her chest like a hunted hare, and resentment choked her throat, making it hard to breathe. She looked out the window and saw her husband leaving the bed and heading for his car. That cooled things down a bit, curbing my fit of jealousy. The woman. She took some sedative drops, but sleep wouldn't come. Several times she went to the window to check if her husband's car was still there. Adriana's main concern was not her husband's well-being, but what the neighbors would say if they saw him in the car. A few times, she even tried to go downstairs to beg her husband to come back to the apartment. But then she thought it would look humiliating and undignified. At about 6 o'clock in the morning, the house phone rang. The woman had long forgotten about the existence of this device, as communication with her children, co-workers, and acquaintances took place via cell phone. She even shuddered with surprise also because at this hour of the morning, the call sounded ominous. It was Alex's mother. "Adriana, is that you?" "Yes, Clara. Something's obviously happened. If it hadn't happened, my dear, I wouldn't have bothered you. I tried to call Alex on his cell phone, but his phone was blocked. So I found your home number. Clara, what happened?" I heard sobbing on the phone. "Our Frank is missing. The mushrooms pulled him. He went into the woods yesterday evening, and he hasn't been there for 24 hours. My mother-in-law was sobbing desperately. Her words could not be made out through her frequent sobs. "Clara, why didn't you call before?" "When I walked through the woods myself, because I know these places well, and Boris can navigate with his eyes closed too. I told him to hold off, and the guy said there's nothing else out there but smartwatches. But he's stubborn. He says I want fried mushrooms. So I did." "Clara, wait, I'll call Alex." "Oh, daughter, do a good deed, or I'll have no place to go. The rescuers were looking for my mushroom man, but it was like he fell into the underworld." "Ugh, your own misfortune, your own stickers." The woman threw on a robe and quickly went down the stairs. Alex sat in the driver's seat with his eyes closed. The car door was open because of the heat. "Alex, I know you're awake. Your mom called. She's waiting by the phone. Come on, hurry up, your dad's in trouble." The man got out of the car. Adriana came back to the apartment and found her husband in total confusion. "I have to go, of course. Alex, Clara, Jana. I need your support right now." "Yeah, it's hard for her right now. I mean, she and her dad are like a unit. I don't know how she's gonna take it. Don't you dare think bad thoughts. I'm sure nothing bad happened to Frank. And get lost in the forest can, even an experienced mushroom picker." Alex, I began in a hurry to pack for the road, and she walked aimlessly around the apartment when her husband headed for the door. Adriana resolutely said, "Alex, I'm coming with you." The man thought for a second, then regretfully said, "No, you'd better stay home, because our idea of a vacation to Miami is untenable at the moment. You'll have to turn in the vouchers. The address is there and sign, please." She confirmed her willingness, but her husband clearly had something else to say. "I have another request or errand for you. Alex, tell me. I will definitely fulfill it." Alex began to look for something in his jacket pocket. Here is the address of one little man, and it's his birthday tomorrow. I promised to give him a real fire truck, but I didn't have time to buy a toy. If it's not too much trouble." She looked at him with her eyes wide open. "I don't mind. Alex, it's your baby." Now it was his turn to wonder. "What are you talking about? I do not and cannot have children on the side. Unfortunately, I don't have time to explain everything to you now, but you'll understand everything if you decide to fulfill my request." I didn't feel like it. All sounds are much louder in the early hours. She heard her husband's car pull away from the house, but she didn't have the energy to go to the window. Covering her eyes, she tried to gather her thoughts, but a piece of paper with an unfamiliar address burned her fingers. She unfolded the note, on which was written out in almost childish handwriting the settlement of Street, Main Street, House 3. Adriana read the address aloud several times, and then said doomfully, "Well, I'll have to go there myself. I hope that I will be able to learn a lot of interesting things in this settlement." The first thing the woman did was to go to the travel agency, where a pretty girl regretfully remarked, "That's too bad. Your husband was so excited about these vouchers. But I realize you have special circumstances, and I sincerely sympathize with you. But what am I supposed to do now? Who's going to buy them? If anyone wants them, we'll have to make a huge discount, and that'll make the owner angry." The girl looked at Adriana as if she could tell her the right thing to do. It was the first time the woman had ever been so politely assertive. "But you can advertise or call people you know." "Woman, what are you talking about? How can you advertise if the trips start tomorrow? Couldn't you at least take care of it earlier? And then always at the last minute comes with the return, and everyone is bound to have unforeseen circumstances." All politeness to the office girl instantly faded away. But Adriana, and her reproaches led to indignation. "Why are you talking to me like that? We really have a very serious reason why we have to cancel the vacation altogether. But I'm not going to answer to you here, and I'm asking for a refund." Suddenly, a short, overweight man entered the room. "Dasha, what's all the commotion?" The girl nodded at Adriana. "Yes, we have a client demanding money, and the trip is burning very hot." The man looked at Adriana with an appraising look so to understand. "Unfortunately, dear, we can't just give you the money. You see, according to our rules, Adriana is not already fed up with this girl and her fat owner." She took in more air and blurted out, "The last thing I care about is your rule. That's one. And you're going to give me back the money my spouse paid for those 2 vouchers right now. That's 2. And if you don't, then you and I will be talking somewhere else." The man said doomedly, "That's 3, as I understand it. Return the money to the citizen." The girl stared at the chief. "What, the whole amount and the penalty?" The boss yelled, so that the windows shook. "Dasha, you're stupid. Give me back the check. I don't want any more trouble." Adriana left the office and was surprised to find that she had lost almost an hour there. After the arguments and bickering with the employees of the travel industry, her already bad mood was completely ruined. She was about to get into her car to go home, but her attention was drawn to the shopping center, where streams of people were streaming in from different directions. She joined the current without resistance. The toy department was not far from the entrance, but the bright colors of a variety of assortment caused consternation. Involuntarily burst out, "Where are the fire trucks?" It would take all day to get around. For a few minutes she looked around until her confusion was noticed by a girl on whose chest was a badge with the inscription "Sales Consultant." In the same polite tone as a girl from a travel agency, the girl asked if I could help you. "What are you interested in?" "I need a big fire truck to be like a real girl," smiled. "Probably promised to your grandson." Adriana, for some reason, immediately answered in the affirmative and obediently followed the girl to the very end of the department. So on the way, she explained, "We have large-size goods at the very end. The thing is that kids like to try out equipment on the spot, and this is not very convenient for other customers. That is why we decided to allocate such an experimental zone especially for them. And here are the samples of equipment from the Ministry of Emergency Situations. Adriana suddenly realized that she doesn't know anything about toys. I don't even know. It's all over the place. How old is your baby? 5, I think. Yes, my husband said 5 years old. The girl raised her thin eyebrows in surprise, but refrained from commenting. For this age, I think this model with radio control would be more suitable. Boys are fascinated by such cars. Admittedly, their fathers and grandfathers don't mind reminiscing about their childhood. Sometimes we have to witness such scenes. Okay, I'll take this machine. The saleswoman looked at Adriana with a teacher's gaze, and I suggest you look at the price tag first. This is not a cheap toy. The woman almost held back an indignant exclamation when she saw the nightly numbers, but so confidently repeated 5 years. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I'm buying this car. Alex called in the evening and sadly informed me that the search for Frank is still underway, but the chances of a positive outcome are getting slimmer by the hour. My husband didn't even ask about the trips and the gift for an unknown boy named Liam. Adriana decided to remind him of his request. Alex, I bought a car. It's so cool. It drives itself. Thank you so much. I'll go to the village early tomorrow morning. Okay. And please apologize to Nina and Betty Ears for me. The new names didn't scare Adriana so much anymore. She just wondered how many more characters I'd have to get to know. Yeah, it must have been a very eventful past life. My husband's. The woman inwardly prepared herself for new surprises as she set out for the village in the morning. She collected the route on the navigator, and in an hour and a half she was at her destination. The woman was surprised to find that she had seen her husband in the company of a strange young woman in a completely different place. She also found the street without difficulty, as there was only one single street in this village, and with a huge box in her hands she set off along this endless street. House number 3 was at the very end. Farther away was a meadow, and beyond it a grove of woods could be seen. There was no one in the yard, and she followed a narrow path paved with bricks. There was no time to get to the house. Adriana knocked on the door as from inside the house came a woman's voice. Someone opened the door. I can't meet you. Betty and the pilot went to the store. The woman timidly opened the door. Come on in. Don't be shy. You must have promised a visit from the Social Security office a long time ago, without letting go of the toy box. The not-forsaken guests walked toward the voice. At last she saw a room whose door was open wide. The room was small but bright. In the corner stood a large bed, on which a woman of about 50 years of age lay covered with pillows and the floor. She might have been younger, but her haggard face indicated a severe illness. The woman smiled welcomingly. You're new. Don't be afraid of me. I don't have a transient disease. Adriana sat down on the edge of the chair. I'm sorry, but I'm not from the social services. I was referred to you by someone else. If I'm not mistaken, it was you, Nina. The women nodded happily. That's right. My name is Nina, if it's no secret. And who was the well-wisher who sent you to me? Alex? Alex. You know him. The woman laughed and slapped herself on the knee. Jesus, I thought we'd suddenly woken up. They'd promised me a mountain of gold. But those promises, as you know, are only on paper, and now they don't show their noses. They're afraid of me. I can complain about them. Speaking in an uncomfortable position was difficult for the woman, so she stopped talking to take a break. So you're saying Alex sent you? Yes, he asked me to. It's my husband. A shadow came over the woman's face. That's how I didn't expect to meet you in person. Your name is Adriana, isn't it? Don't be outraged, for God's sake. I don't even feel comfortable putting that box down. It's in your way. Adriana was in a state of uncertainty. She obediently placed her uncomfortable burden on the floor. I looked around. The atmosphere in the room I was in was bedridden. The woman was modest, but perfect cleanliness reigned everywhere. Suddenly, the woman's gaze settled on a photograph on which two military men in pilots' uniforms were smiling cheerfully. In one of them, she recognized her husband. Nana said very quietly, "That's Alex with my Liam." They were friends. My husband was killed, but Alex managed to escape. If it weren't for him, we'd probably have starved to death long ago. Adriana felt her legs go stiff, and she sank down onto the table. Tears spurted from her eyes again, but they were not the same tears. Voices were heard from the street. Nana smiled again. It was that one. The ones on the left aren't coming from the store. It's her grandson's birthday today. The guests regretfully thought that they should have bought at least a small cake. But aloud she said, nodding at the box, "It's a present from Alex, a real fire truck." Adriana couldn't calm down. The realization that she had thought so poorly of her husband, the relief that he hadn't cheated on her, the realization that she'd thought so badly of her husband, the relief that he hadn't cheated on her, the relief that he hadn't cheated on her. And a little later, in just a few minutes, she realized just how bad things were in their family. If Alex had helped these people for so many years, she didn't even know. Not just didn't know or notice, and her husband hadn't even told her, apparently thinking that there would be no reaction. And if they did, it wouldn't be the reaction a normal, kind person would have. I hated what was happening to Adriana. "Adriana, what's wrong with you? You didn't know anything about us." The woman shook her head, then grinned bitterly. Apparently our spiritual intimacy with her husband was lost somewhere. She knew nothing. "Don't worry, things will get better. He asked you to come here. So he was sure of you." Adriana only shook her head, and the next moment the same boy she had seen at the market came running into the room. He saw the strange woman and crouched down next to his grandmother, pressing himself against her. His eyes were looking at the big box and then at Adriana. "Liam, meet Adriana, Uncle Alex's wife." Liam smiled, got up, walked over to Adriana, extended his hand. "Hello." Adriana, in some impulse of feelings, pressed Liam's skinny body to her. "Hello, Liam. This is for you from Uncle Alex." The boy's eyes lit up. He ran his hand over the box could be opened. Adriana smiled. "Of course, let me help you." They opened the box together. Liam's eyes lit up. "How big and beautiful it is. I'm going to be a fireman when I grow up." Nina laughed. "Oh, Liam, of course you will." A young woman appeared in the room. "Hello." She looked at Adriana in surprise. And then Adriana realized it. She recognized her. "Is your name Adriana? You are Uncle Alex's wife." Adriana smiled, stood up. "Yes. Hello, Betty." Betty turned out to be a pretty young woman with kind blue eyes. "Oh, I'm going to put it on the table." Adriana looked embarrassed. "I think I'll go." "Don't even think about it. You must celebrate with us." And then the woman realized she wanted to stay here. She wanted to sit with these people, to talk. No need to be stern, no need to hold herself back, wondering what she'd look like. "Betty, let me help you then." Nana smiled. "Adriana, that's not what I had envisioned. You know, stricter or something." Adriana laughed, "But she will get it. I have Alex made a monster out of me." Betty, while they were fiddling in the kitchen, she told me that her mom had been sick for a long time and needed some very serious treatment, but they didn't have such an opportunity because the treatment was only in Germany. Sometimes she gets better, and then she doesn't get up, even does something around the house. But she spends more time in bed because all her joints hurt so much. Betty said that her husband couldn't stand the constant absence of his wife and divorced her. But Betty has no regrets, because if a man treated her mother's illness like that, he is not her man. Liam missed his father very much at first, who never came to see them again. And then he literally attached himself to Uncle Alex. "We must have given you a lot of unpleasant moments. Uncle Alex tried to visit us often, but we realized that he could spend that time at home with you." Adriana waved her hand. "It doesn't matter anymore. What's important is that we've met. Where is Uncle Alex? Adriana told her that he had gone to his parents and what had happened there. Betty's eyes rounded. God, what a horror. I wish it would all be resolved. An hour later, they were sitting at the table. Nana raised her glass. But what's a grandchild for you to be like this? No, even better than your grandfather was. Adriana was silent. She realized that now Nina was going to tell about the friendship between her husband and her husband's Leonid. And so she did. Liam was quickly fed up. He couldn't wait to try out the new machine. He was cutting it, silent. Finally, she did not smile, but go already, or else cut a hole on his pants. Liam did not have to persuade. In a flash, he was already at the machine. Betty filled his glasses to Papa and waved his handkerchief over his eyes. Betty didn't remember Papa at all. She was only 3 years old when he died. Adriana didn't know about her Alex having a friend like that. Not even before they were married. Alex had told her that he had the best friend, that he died, and there would never be another like him. In those days, it was not allowed to say much. That's why Adriana didn't know anything else. And then she became uninterested in Alex's affairs, but not enough to be interested in anything that had gone before. Life just sort of rolled on by itself. She thought about children, about career, about everything in the world, but not about what was on her husband's soul. Alex was the real deal. Nina continued, I take it you don't know about Liam. You and Alex were married later. Adriana shook her head no. I mean that he had a friend, I know. But that's about it. Liam and Alex became friends in their first year of military school. It came out of the blue. Liam stood up for me on the street. The odds were stacked against him. He would have gotten in a lot of trouble if it hadn't been for Alex. He got there just in time, and the two of them got through it with only a few casualties. I was on my way back from my girlfriend's. I didn't even think I'd be attacked in my own neighborhood. And after the fight, it turned out that Liam needed to go to the hospital. And Alex could use one too. Leanie had a big cut, and Alex had something wrong with his arm. Of course, I couldn't stop them now. So we went with them to the hospital. Alex had a sprain. He had it put in, and he bravely kept quiet. Liam got a few stitches while they wrote up the statement. Then they spent 2 more hours at the station. Anyway, it's time to go home. And I realize it's almost morning. And my mom's not gonna give me a pat on the head. The guys volunteered to walk me home and explain everything to my mom. It's weird that they did it. Mom gave them tea too. Since then, we've been together everywhere. Even for exams we were preparing together. Boys for theirs and I for mine. Mom laughed, said that I had a real night like in a fairy tale. And then, when school was over, I realized that we became adults. Boys aren't boys anymore. And I need to make up my mind. I knew Alex and Liam liked me, but Liam. I liked Alex like a brother, and I liked Liam a little differently. Anyway, after Liam and I got married, Alex went to serve somewhere far away, and my husband and I stayed here. Alex flew in a couple times, and I could see how hard it was for my husband. He was military to the core. He needed real service. When it was 2 years old, the household was more or less set up. I let him go. I told him that only for a while for one contract. My husband loved us very much, but he loved the army too. We agreed that he would call every chance he got and come over. Alex wasn't feeling well. He confessed to me later that he had been carrying a burden of guilt all his life. He didn't go after him. Liam died a year later. Nina paused. Betty immediately put a glass of water in front of her. I threw my fists at Alex and screamed that it was all his fault. After all, Liam had pushed Alex away when he realized that he had pushed Alex in front of them, and he hadn't made it himself. Then, when the pain subsided a bit, I realized that Liam would never have done anything differently, even if it wasn't Alex 100 times. But it was a shame to ask Alex to apologize. I knew he'd gotten married, that he'd had his firstborn, so I decided I should just roll over and not remind him of it. Especially since after Leanie died, He didn't go back to where it was hot. Life had gotten very difficult. Everything I had been promised by the authorities after Liam died somehow changed quickly and Tonikka ended. I was only 10 when I started to develop this disease out of nervousness. But at the age I was, you don't pay much attention to illnesses. What happened? We moved out of the apartment here. It was closer to work. The air is cleaner here and life is cheaper. Alex said he went to the old address, but there were other people living there. He thought I was married and didn't look for me either. We met at the cemetery. On my husband's anniversary, he asked me how we were doing, and I burst out. I told him all about how I had to go to the Social Security office and the military recruitment center, how often Betty was sick, and how I could hardly walk anymore. I just needed to talk, because in the pursuit of robots and salaries, I had no friends left at all. I was once again on sick leave from work, and they were threatening to fire me. It was a very difficult time. There was a catastrophic shortage of jobs. Alex came to our house the next day. He was very timely because someone had complained to the guardianship office that I had nothing to feed my child. Since then, he has supported us constantly. When I got sick, it got really hard. Betty was torn between family, work, and me. I lost my husband. Of course, I get prescriptions for free medicines, but they are not available in pharmacies, and there is nothing to replace them. If something happens, it is so weak that it just doesn't help me. I'm grateful to Alex to the end of my life. He replaced both my father and grandfather at once. I wish he'd die sooner so I don't have to torture everyone. Mom, don't you dare say that. We'll cure you, and we'll still be fine. Of course, it'll be Betty, but without me. Unlike a burden, I'm the only one you've got. Adriana couldn't help herself. What are you talking about? You're not alone. You have such a wonderful grandson, daughter Alex, after all. And now me. We'll keep you awake. Adriana's cell phone rang in her pocket. It was Alex. Yes, Alex. How did you find it? Adriana, we found him. Can you imagine? He fell into a hole. I don't even know how he didn't see it. And he broke his leg. The EMS dog found him. Oh my God, it's no big deal. He's in the hospital now, of course, but he's not life-threatening, although he is. Mom said she'd killed him when he got better. Adriana smiled. She was so pleased to hear her husband's voice. Alex, when you are back, we all miss you here, Where are you? Me, Alex, sitting at Nina, Betty, and Liam's table, drinking champagne and taking the cab home. There was silence on the phone for a while. You're still there? Yeah, and I'm in no hurry to go to an empty apartment. Adriana, yes, Adriana. It's probably been a long time since I told you I love you. She thought she'd heard. Yeah, it's been a long time since Alex said those words, and in that tone of voice. I love you too. Come back soon. Late that night, as Adriana was getting ready for bed, she Skyped Jenna's mom. What's wrong? Oh, daughter, so many things, Mom. You're scaring me. Jenna looked away, and Adriana concluded that she wasn't the only one. Yes, Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't know you'd call. Henry's asleep, so we can talk. Adriana, of course, sighed. Her daughter's all grown up now. She told her about her grandfather. The girl exclaimed, "Why didn't you call me right away?" Why? So you'd worry. Grandpa is safe now. But I was with people I thought very badly of at first. Adriana told Jenna everything, starting with tracking down Dad. Mommy, you're a piece of work. And Dad, of course, you give too. How did all this happen? She turned sideways again, and then in the monitor of the laptop appeared that man, whom her daughter showed her, but quite well in Russian. He spoke. Good afternoon. I apologize. Perhaps this is not how we should have met the first time, but I unwittingly witnessed your conversation. I admire your husband and my Jenna's father, and that woman too. My friend here in Germany has his own clinic. I assume that's the clinic you were talking about, since there are no others like it. If you'll allow me, I'd like to help too. especially since I'm determined to become a member of your family. He explained that he would need to send a length survey tomorrow and then talk to his friend. I can't promise anything as I'm not good at medicine, but if something can be done, my friend will do it. There's no need to worry about money. Adriana fell asleep with a smile on her lips. Well, yes, there's a big age difference, but the man Henry is nice and handsome, and you can see how much he cares for Jenna. In the morning, Adriana was already in the village. She explained in a nutshell what she wanted. Nina's eyes lit up with a kind of light, and then she cried. You've done so much for us, first with Elixa, now you. Stop it. I haven't done anything like that yet. Adriana came home when Alex was already there. Apparently, he came in and went to bed. He slept right in his clothes, on the couch in the living room. Adriana crouched down next to him, stroked his hair, completely graying his temples. She hadn't noticed before. Alex suddenly caught her hand and pressed it to his clubs. Adriana smiled, as she had before. He had always done this. Before. By late afternoon, Jenna called back. Mom, he'll take it. Henry will already know about the tickets to get the woman here comfortably. Thank you, Jenna. And tell Henry thanks. She's off. Alex asked, so who is Heinrich, and who needs to be delivered where? Adriana sighed. We have to be careful how we tell them. And 6 months later, Jenna and Henry were twirling in a waltz at their own wedding. Alex had said at once that if the wedding was to be only here, in the homeland, Adriana thought they had gotten off with little bloodshed. If Alex had bitten his teeth, there might not have been a wedding. But then, when Adriana told him everything, he sat down and then waved his hand. I guess everyone has his own life, and no one has the right to force a person to live the way he does not want. There was some commotion in the doorway of the restaurant. Alex and Adriana looked there. Adriana smiled. Liam was running towards them with all his legs. He immediately hugged the two of them. The boy was wearing a fancy suit. Adriana had bought it herself. Betty followed. She had just recently gotten an admirer, a big one. Sam flew to his sister's wedding with his trainer, who now never left Betty's side. Nina was walking beside him. She was leaning lightly on her cane, but no longer wrinkled at every movement. By the way, Jenna had mentioned that she had also had a man at the clinic, Cy Till, who only kept talking about the great, very beautiful, kind, wonderful, and so on woman Nina. When the commotion had settled down and everyone was seated at their tables, Alex stood up. I would like to raise a glass today to the person without whom there would not be so many happy people. This is my wife, Adriana. She has borne me beautiful children. Such a beautiful bride can only be her daughter. She has done what many could not do. She has accomplished a lot in her career. Most importantly, Alex paused. She is the most beautiful woman I love very much. Adriana, I love you as much as I don't seem to have loved you even when I was young. Everyone applauded. Adriana cried. You should be happy. But she felt like crying.